So these are the two aspects of Abraham that we can use and develop further today in order for us to basically learn the right tools to articulate Islam to others and also to ourselves. So let's start with the first aspect, that there is no doubt. The messengers, including Abraham, the prophets, including Ibrahim alayhi salam, upon him be peace, had no doubt in the existence of Allah and the fact that He deserves to be worshipped. To the point, Allah rhetorically tells us that the messenger said, is there a doubt in the creator of the heavens and the earth? Meaning it's unquestionable. It's unquestionable. It's self-evidently true. And what we mean by self-evident means true by default. True by default. So what I want to show you now is that when someone says to you, does God exist? You don't jump and say, let me give you all of this evidence. You teach them that they're asking the wrong question. We need to learn to turn the tables. Why do you think intellectually you have to be on the back foot all the time? Just like a boxer, he's on the ropes, right? And he has to defend himself. No, we stay in the middle of the ring and we keep our intellectual ground because we have the correct basis. We have the correct set of ideas. We have the correct worldview. And this is very significant for us to understand. We always quickly say, oh, let's answer the question, bro. He said, where's your evidence for God? Hold on a second. We have lots of evidence, but we need to teach people how to think. And this is a very important strategy in how to articulate Islam to human beings. Because sometimes we want to give people answers all the time. It's like a form of ego, isn't it? Oh, I've got the answer, bro. Let me give it to him. No. Sometimes we have to use our spiritual insight and wisdom. Sometimes the best thing you can do to your fellow human being is to get them to think. Don't give them answers all the time. Just like, the villagers who are very, very poor. Don't give them fish. Teach them how to fish. If you give them fish, then you're going to run out of fish because you can't answer all the questions, right? But if you teach them how to fish, from our point of view, teach them how to think, then whatever question comes along, at least they'll be able to answer it. And by Allah, this is a Quranic strategy. How many times in the Quran do we find questions and we don't find answers? How many times in the Quran? For example, chapter 52, verse 35 to 36. Did you come from nothing? Did you create yourself? Did you create the heavens and the earth? Indeed, they have no certainty. Where's the answer? There's no direct answer. Allah is teaching us. You ask these questions. And if you're sincere, inevitably it would lead to the right answer. So from a Quranic point of view, what's very deep and profound is the Quran teaches us how to think by asking these questions, even in a rhetorical way. So it awakens within us this idea that, okay, this is a new question. Let me think about it. So it's very important for us not to be on the intellectual back foot. So let me start with a story. Now, by the way, this is not a shameless plug. Well, it might be. But everything I'm saying is from chapter 4 and 6 from my book called The Divine Reality, God, Islam and the Mirage of Atheism, okay? So I want to start this part, this aspect of the life of Abraham concerning self-evident truths with a little bit of a scenario, a little bit of a story. I'm going to read it from my book. It's only 1 or 2 paragraphs. And then I'm going to explain what is meant by this. Imagine one evening you receive a call from David, one of your old school friends you used to sit next to during science lessons. You haven't spoken to him for years, but you remember the weird questions he used to ask you. Although you found him pleasant, you were not a fan of his ideas. Reluctantly, you answer the phone. After a brief exchange of greetings, he invites you to have lunch with him. You half-heartedly accept his invitation. During lunch, he asks, "Can I tell you something?" You reply positively, and he begins to express to you something that you haven't heard before. You know, the past, like what you did yesterday, last year, and all the way back to your birth, didn't really happen. It's just an illusion in your head. So my question to you is, do you believe the past exists? As a rational person, you do not agree with his assertion, and you reply, what evidence do you have to prove that the past does not exist? Now rewind the conversation and imagine you spent the whole meal trying to prove that the past is something that really happened. Which scenario do you prefer? The first scenario or the second scenario? Give me an answer. Do you prefer the scenario where I respond to his claim by basically saying, what evidence do you have to prove that the past never existed? Or do you prefer the scenario where I spend my whole lunch with him trying to prove that the past did exist? Which scenario is more intellectually sound for you? The first one, right? So why do we sit with some atheists and spend months and years and decades debating with them about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is the existence of God less certain than the existence of the past? Do you see the point I'm trying to make here? The point I'm trying to make here is David in this story was challenging something that was true by default, meaning it was self-evidently true. From our psychological intuitions, we know the past existed. 5 minutes ago existed. It was once real. 5 days ago once existed. Many of us have white beards in this room. We know the past existed, right? And may your white beards be shining lights on the Day of Judgment. So from that point of view, we know intuitively there is temporal depth, meaning there is time. It happened. The past is real. But David is saying to me, no, it's not real. The universe was just created 5 minutes ago, for example, with all of your ideas and memories built into you. You're not going to accept that because it's going against a self-evident truth. So the onus of proof is on me or David? It's on David. David has to prove his assertion that the past wasn't real, never existed. It would be absurd for me to sit there and to prove to him that actually, let me give you some evidence why the past existed.